Hey guys, this is a very short video on depression. So to begin with, we must know what actually depression is, what happens really at molecular level and physiological level in depression. So depression, basically what happens is you have a decline of mainly three neurotransmitters in your brain, in your central nervous system, in your brain. So what happens is in depression, you have shorted of these, not completely shorted, but yeah, decline of these three neurotransmitters. One is norepinephrine, one is your serotonin, and one is your dopamine. So all these, when these three neurotransmitters decrease in your brain, then that can lead to depression. So, if we know that if depression is caused by loss of these three neurotransmitters, not completely, but yeah, there's a decline, there's a shortage of these. So, what our main goal of treatment would be? It will be to increase three of them. Yeah, getting my point? So, if these three get decreased in your depression, then our goal is to increase these neurotransmitters so that person can feel better, and that's the main basic of the treatment of the depression. So these three were declined, we will increase them. So that's our main goal of the treatment of neurotransmitters. But if you see here, um, I've just shown that we will try to increase just neuroepinephrine and serotonin in the treatment of depression. Why won't we increase dopamine? Because if you would see my another video, I have mentioned that dopamine, increase of dopamine is very important. Dopamine is very important in our body, but increased dopamine can also lead to psychosis. Yeah, that you can see a definition and everything of psychosis in my another video. So what we would try to do is, we instead of increasing dopamine, we would concentrate on increasing norepinephrine and serotonin. Yeah, dopamine, why not? Because dopamine would lead to your psychosis. So that's what we don't want. So it's better just to increase norepinephrine and serotonin. So how do we do that then? So here I have drawn four classes of uh, uh, these medications, a group of class of drugs that would increase your norepinephrine and serotonin. How do we do that? Let's see. Uh, Here I have drawn a neuron on an axon and a neuron, complete neuron with the synaptic cleft. Here, this is presynaptic neuron, and this is postsynaptic part of the neuron. So here what I've seen is you have two kind of enzymes like MAO and MAOB. Yeah. So what they do is, if suppose we block MAO-A, that what role of these MAO enzymes. MAO is like, what they do is they would decline, they would decrease your uh, production of neurotransmitters. Yeah, MAO and MAOB. MAO would decrease your production of norepinephrine. Yeah, and MAOB decreases your production of dopamine. So MAO, to increase our MAO increases your production of norepinephrine, and MAOB increases your production of dopamine. So what we would do is, we will block them. If they play a part in decreasing your neurotransmitters, so of course we will block them. So if we block them, you would increase your neurotransmitters production. So if we block MAOA, then we would increase norepinephrine and serotonin. If we block MAOB, then that would increase your dopamine. Yeah. So by blocking this MAO, both of them, A and B, we would get all three neurotransmitters production increased. Yeah, norepinephrine, serotonin, and dopamine. And that's a good goal, that's a good thing, because in the beginning of this video, what I have discussed is decline of less production of dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. That leads to your depression. So by increasing these three, of course, we achieve our goal to treat depression. But MAO, that's why we don't use them that much, they are not the preferred class of the drug to use in depression because, as I already mentioned, MAOA and MAOB, they are non-selective. So what they will do is they will they will block both of them. So by blocking both of them, you would increase. Good part is you would increase norepinephrine and serotonin, but along with that, you would increase your dopamine too. And as I already discussed, dopamine increase we don't want in this case, in the case of depression that much, because that will lead to psychosis. So that's why they are not the preferred class of drugs, because they are non-selective inhibitors of these MAO inhibitors. These kind of this class of drug, they would block both of them. So all three neurotransmitter would increase, but we want just norepinephrine and serotonin especially to increase, not dopamine. So that's why they are not kind of preferred class of drugs. So now, of course, there are pros and cons of each and everything. So of course, norepinephrine and serotonin, if they get increased, as we know, if norepinephrine would get increased, then that would lead to your hypertension crisis. Yeah, because norepinephrine, as we know, is a sympathetic neurotransmitter. So at the heart, it would increase your heart rate, and vasoconstriction it would do. So it would make your through your alpha-1 receptors, it will constrict your vessels, and it will lead to your increased blood pressure and increased heart rate, tachycardia. So all kind of these things, that will lead to your this thing, hypertension crisis. Yeah. So this is the con of the norepinephrine. And what if we increase too much serotonin through these MAO receptors? MAO inhibitors drugs? What they will do is they will lead to serotonin syndrome. Yeah, in serotonin syndrome also, serotonin, it has its own cons. So serotonin will lead to your serotonin syndrome, like it will lead to sweating and myotonia and jerks and all that. It can lead to many problems too. So that's so if too much of serotonin increased, it will lead to serotonin syndrome, and if too much of norepinephrine is increased, it will lead to your hypertension crisis. Yeah. And worst part is suppose you use these drugs with other class of drugs which increase these, then of course then drug interaction will be too much, and too much of these would be produced. So that's why these are not indicated. MAO inhibitors and many class of drugs, they are not indicated to increase together, to use together. Sorry, because if you use together, then for sure they can lead to such crisis. Yeah, serotonin syndrome and hypertension crisis. So this was all about MAO inhibitors. Let's go to another class of drug. What we can use in depression. So in depression, the second class of drug which we can use is TCAs, yeah, tricyclic antidepressants. So tricyclic antidepressants they are the reuptake inhibitors. Reuptake inhibitors I have mentioned in my another video. You could go through that. But reuptake inhibitors, role of them is, suppose this is a presynaptic neuron. From here, the neurotransmitters comes down in the cleft, synaptic cleft. Now the role of this carrier, which I have drawn here by a car, what this this taxi, what they do is, when the neurotransmitter comes, they take them back and bring them back at their place. Yeah, they get them back over here in the presynaptic. So, but what if we block this taxi? What if we block this car? Then this car won't take them back to this presynaptic neuron. And so those passengers, what I mean by passengers is those neurotransmitters like norepinephrine, serotonin, what they will do is they will remain here. Yeah, because there's no carrier, there's no vehicle to carry them back. So they will remain, hence their action is enhanced. So they will remain over here for a much more longer time. And this is our goal of the treatment, because we want to norepinephrine, serotonin to be increased, to have a longer role. So that's why this is a reuptake inhibitor. Reuptake inhibitors, carrier that reuptakes them, you inhibit them. So this is the TCAs. Yeah. So TCAs are reuptake inhibitors. So I mentioned how they act. Yeah, by blocking this carrier, blocking this taxi, blocking this car. Yeah. So now main so let's then it comes examples of them are this amitriptyline, imiperim, and imipramine, and clomipramine. Yeah, so these are, you need to just mug up. Toxicity is because of these three C's. Three C's what we understand, because since these are muscarinic and alpha blocker too, these TCAs, what they will do is they will produce three kind of C's. Three kind of C's are your convulsions, your coma, and cardiotoxicity. Yeah, because of these, because they block your muscarinic and alpha blocker, alpha receptors too. Yeah. And so uses of TCAs can be in enuresis, anxiety, or obsessive convulsive obsessive disorder, OCDs, and compulsion disorders. Yeah, and your this neuropathic pain, major depression. Yeah, so neuropathic pain, you can use amitriptyline. Yeah, just like carbamazepine, that can be used. And in major depression, so but the least thing is in major depression only you can use them, but most of their uses is in this OCDs and neuropathic pain and anxiety and enuresis. Yeah. So TCA's role is this. Because of this three C's, too much of toxicity, their role, their uses also has declined. So then same thing goes for their interaction too, because TCAs, if they increase this much, you don't have to use them much with other class of drugs that increase norepinephrine and serotonin, because again they would increase your, they will lead to your hypertension crisis, as I mentioned here. Same thing, they can lead to your hypertension crisis, and they can lead to your serotonin syndrome. So again so that's why need to be care need to be taken while using TCAs with other class of drugs. Yeah, because together they can increase too much of your neurotransmitters, and that's not good. Now, the third and the most important class of drug which we use in depression is your SSRI. Yeah, so they are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Yeah, so again the same concept which I explained here is all about the reuptake. So what they do is, instead of blocking the uptake of even serotonin and norepinephrine, these one SSRI, they just preferably they block just your reuptake of your serotonin. So SSRI works like if serotonin comes here, they will block especially the taxi that belongs to serotonin. So they will just block that taxi related to your serotonin. So hence your serotonin will increase. It won't give much effect to it. Your norepinephrine or dopamine won't get affected. So serotonin reuptake inhibitors, they just block the reuptake of your serotonin. So these are the very important class of drugs in used in depression. Example of these would be sertraline, one must remember, and citalopram at least. Yeah, sertraline and citalopram must be remembered. So these SSRI, what they would do is, since their reuptake is inhibited, like for an example here, so serotonin will remain here much longer. Yeah, and that's the goal of our treatment. So SSRI is much more, because they aren't playing with your norepinephrine, neither with your dopamine. So just serotonin is increased, and so serotonin SSRI can be used in your major depression. Yeah, and OCDs too. So that's all. Thank you.